cheapest way to get started while investing in real estate. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Janice Charles. I live in Upper East Tennessee, and I have been investing in real estate for the past 12 years. And in that time, I have built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio while raising 9 kids in the Appalachian foothills all by myself. Okay, so we have had an offer accepted on a new 4-unit apartment building in the neighborhood, nope, not neighborhood, in the town right up the street. And this one's pretty exciting because we are doing this one in tandem with one of my grown children. Why are we doing that? Well, we're doing it because this kid can house hack. He can do that, and what that means is he can live in one unit while letting the tenants pay for the mortgage. That is one of the best ways to get started in real estate. It's one of the cheapest and easiest ways to start a real estate portfolio, and it's the way that I myself got started back in 2014 when I first bought my first building. Now, I like talking about this as a way for young people to get started. I have recently talked to a lot of people that are my age, and I am in my 50s, and I think it's also a great way for us to get started. So I'm Generation X, and most of the people in our generation, we didn't do great saving for retirement. So I didn't even start thinking about it until I was 42 years old. And I wasn't even starting for retirement. I was starting just to have a place for my family to live, right? So you're not too late if you're just now doing this and you're my age or even older. This is how you can do it, right? And I would even encourage you to really think about doing this if you really are going to have to supplement Social Security or a pension or what have you. By the way, meet Wampler. That's my buddy right behind me. All right. So house hacking is when you purchase a property of any kind and you let tenants or roommates or other folks supplement or help pay for the mortgage. And an FHA, Federal Housing Authority, is a type of mortgage where you pay a minimal amount of money down. In this case, he's putting 3.5% down. Now, that's a far cry from a 10% or 20% mortgage, which is really the only kind of mortgage that you hear people talking about on the news. You hear people saying that it's impossible to save 20% in order to get a down payment, right? And that is nearly impossible for a lot of people. I never would have been able to do that. But you can do 3.5%, right? So 3.5% down is very doable. This property is $550,000. If we were to go in there with 20% down, you're talking 110 grand. But because we're doing it FHA, it's $19,725. That's a big difference. Suddenly, it makes something that seems impossible bite size, something that you probably can tackle. And I really hope my miniature dachshund is not about to go nuts with the squeaky toys, which he might. All right, so let's do a deal breakdown on this so that it really starts to make sense for you. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look. This is a 4-unit apartment building, right? And our purchase price is $550,000. That means our down payment, oh, I said it wrong. It's $19,250. All right, so of those 4 units, to do a house hack, which is where other people pay your mortgage, we're gonna let 3 of those units stay rented. And right now, they're getting $1,100 a month in rents. Here go the squeaky toys. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully he'll bring it to me and I can get it away from him. Wampler, come. Bring it here, buddy. So those $3,300 in rents are going to offset the mortgage, and my son is going to live in unit number 4. So here's how that's going to work. The mortgage is going to be $4,138. Hey, bud, let me have that. Okay, so we're going to talk about this rubber chicken. All right, so at the very beginning, we've got $4,138 on the mortgage, right? And for the very first year, we're going to have $3,300 in rents that are coming in, which means we've got a swing of $830-something that we need to cover for the missing unit. That's the unit that my son is going to live in. But he's going to have a roommate, okay? So instead of an $830-something swing in housing cost, suddenly his housing cost shrinks down to $230-something. So he's been paying $850 a month for his rent. Now it's $3-something or $2-something for his rent. That's a big difference because the entire time he is getting to a point where at the end of a 12-month period, he can rent that last unit, okay? That's a big deal. Why? Because to meet, hi, thank you. Great day, I appreciate that. At the end of 1 year, you have met compliance for an FHA mortgage. The only thing they ask you to do is occupy the property for 1 year, okay? At the end of a year, you can move out of the property and put a tenant in that fourth unit. Here's where it gets exciting. Those units should be renting for $1,300 a month. So when he moves out at the end of a year and he rents that fourth unit and he brings all those units up to market rent, here's what we're looking at that point. Suddenly, he's got 4 units at $1,300 a month renting for $5,200, and his mortgage all in is still the $4,138, which means he's now got a positive swing of just over $1,000 a month. That's not bad. He's only been in there for 1 year. He moves out, puts a tenant in, has market value rents, and now he is on the downslope. What is he waiting on? He's waiting on the 5-year point to hit. Why does he care about the 5-year point? Well, he wants to do a couple of things. If you're talking about an FHA mortgage, you do have to trade the fact that you've got a low down payment. Hello. Sorry, I'm new to live, so this is kind of, I have an attention thing I've got to figure out. You do have to trade a low down payment with something called private mortgage insurance. That's kind of where the bank that backs your mortgage says, okay, you're only putting a small amount down, so we're going to ask you to pay a little bit extra every month to help ensure that we get our money back, right? So you have to carry the private mortgage insurance until the value of your property gets to 80% of the loan. Here's what I mean by that. So as your property increases in value and you begin to pay down the mortgage, you begin to build up equity. After about 5 years, and now we can't predict the future, but we can make some educated guesses. So after about 5 years, your mortgage has gotten paid down to approximately $497,000. In our area, you get about 3% in value every year as a property increase. You can't guarantee that, but on average, over the past 50 years, our area has seen an increase in property values of 3%. Actually, it's closer to 4%, but we're using 3% for projection. So at the end of that 5-year period, you have approximately $140,000 in equity. Why does that matter? Well, it means that you can refinance your mortgage, you can take it off of an FHA, you can turn it into a conventional note, and you can turn around and you can get another FHA mortgage. It works, and it works like clockwork, because the kid that I'm talking about doing this with closed last week on the mortgage that took 2 properties off FHA mortgages, and this week he just applied for another one for the property that we just had the offer accepted on, okay? So if you're following me, I'm talking about using house hacking properties, using FHA mortgages as a way to build a rental real estate portfolio. And the property in particular that I'm talking about is one that is right up the road in a nearby town, 20 minutes away, that has 4 units. So let's walk back through and let's do the deal breakdown from scratch. All right. So I got off track when my dog started with the rubber chicken. So we're going to go back to the beginning. All right. So at $550,000 with a 3.5% down, $19,250. Okay. We're going with an FHA note. And right now, the bank just told me that 6.2 is the interest rate that Ricky has gotten quoted. It's getting a little bit higher, so if this is something that you're interested in doing, always make sure that you're checking your rate at any given moment. And also remember that you're going to have private mortgage insurance, which is the equivalent of 0.3% on top of whatever your interest rate is. So use that as part of your calculations. So that is your principal and interest. It's your PMI. And then you also have to take into account that you're going to have insurance and taxes on top of that. And when you have an FHA note, the mortgage company will always hold an escrow account and pay your taxes and insurance out of that escrow account. So you pay it as part of your monthly mortgage payment. You never see it. You never have to do the math. You never have to worry about it. They do all of that on your behalf for you. All right, so at first, those 3 units are each going to be bringing in $1,100. And 2 of the units have leases. One of them doesn't. One of them's empty. And Ricky's going to occupy the empty unit, right? So of the other 3 units, 1 unit, we can raise the rent on that one to market rate pretty much out of the gate. So that will go to $1,300 immediately. The other 2 have leases, so we have to wait until those leases come due. And when those come up for renewal, we can raise the rents on those. Now, we've already inspected the units. We have taken a look at the tenants. We know who's in there. We know which ones we would like to keep. We know which ones we don't necessarily care to keep. And so we know which ones we would prefer to offer, an immediate rate break to, and which ones it's okay with us if they decide to part company. It's always okay going into it if you do your underwriting, understanding that not every tenant is going to be a perfect fit for you even if it was a good fit for the previous owner. You don't have to hang on to them just because they were there. So we know ahead of time that there might be a parting. Maybe not. We'll see going into it. But we know ahead of time that the rents will need to come up, and we have a plan for those going up. So they will go up to $1,300 a month. And then at the end of the 1-year period, when Ricky moves out, the unit number 4 will also be at $1,300 a month. So that means all in, the cash flow for the entire property will be $5,200 a month, and the mortgage will still be the $4,138. So the mortgage will not change. We've locked that in. Taxes and insurance might change a little bit over the course of the next few years, but for the most part, we know what our expenses are going to be. All right, so I already talked about why is it important that we look at the 5-year plan. Eventually, we want to get to the point where we can refinance that mortgage and take that FHA mortgage off of the credit file. As long as you have an FHA mortgage on your credit file, you're limited by your debt to income ratio. That's not a problem because this is an income producing property, and that's the best kind of property. He's not going to have to worry about paying the mortgage because the tenants are going to be paying the mortgage for him. And over the course of the next 1.5 years, he's going to build up an operating fund, a cushion fund of about $12,000, okay? So anything that comes up, if we have to replace a heat pump, if we have to look at the roof, if we have to look at gutters, if we have to look at siding, all the things that happen when you have a property and you have to take care of, that cushion, that $1,000 a month that we're aiming for, that money goes in the bank and that money is used to take care of the property, okay? So that's how you kind of look at taking an analysis of a property to know whether or not it's something that you want to tackle right away. My first house hack, when I did the first one, it was in 2014. I had 0 money. I mean, when I say 0, I mean no money. And I had 7 children I was taking care of. I had my own. I had inherited my brother's kids. I had everybody's kids. And I had nothing, right? And I still went into this property. And you talk about a DIY situation. I did everything myself because I had no choice. It is one of the best things I ever did. Was it scary? Yes. Would I recommend it? Maybe. I'm glad I did it. It took care of us, and it's the best property I have now. Is it the smart way to do things? It's not the ideal way to do things, but would I go back and do it again? 100%, all day long. All right, so if you go back and you kind of run the numbers and you project out and make your educated guesses, over the course of the next 5 years, you can tell how much you're going to pay down your mortgage. You can use history to say, probably our property is going to appreciate by a certain amount. And you know where you're going to stand at the end of 5 years and 10 years, 15 years. Now, the farther you get out into the future, the more you're guessing, and you can never count on appreciation. Appreciation is the gambling side. You don't know that that's going to happen. The cash flow side, that's the part that's more secure. That's the part you can kind of say, okay, this I know that I can kind of control. That's the part that you can put in the bank. The final thing before I sign off, something that I want you all to realize, and people don't understand this, and it's important. When you go to buy a multifamily unit and you're getting an FHA or an owner-occupied or a conventional mortgage, the mortgage company will use the income from 3 of the 4 units as part of your income, right? So my son makes pretty good money, and he qualified by the skin of his teeth for this property by himself. But we were able to take those leases and take them to the mortgage company and say, by the way, can you add $3,300 a month to his income? Because here's proof that the tenants are already in place, and that part goes into his qualification. So if you go out and you're looking at a multifamily unit and you think, I don't qualify on my own, ask your mortgage broker to calculate the tenants on top of your income. And if they don't know how to do it, call around until you find an FHA mortgage person that does know how to do it, because it's 100% possible. And if they tell you they can't, then they're the ones that's wrong, and you need to get a new mortgage person, okay? You use the rents from the building to qualify to buy the building. That's critical. All right, so that's the deal breakdown on the building that we are looking at. Of course, a million things could go wrong. Deals fall apart all the time for all kinds of reasons. You never know. But this one looks pretty good. We've been inside it. I've got the inspection in my email sitting there waiting on me to look at it. The appraiser is on their way in the next couple of days, I think. So now it's just a matter of all the rest of the underwriting to go through. So it's exciting. The biggest difference in my financial life was the acquisition of that first fourplex back in 2014 for me. And the fact that my son is in a position to do the very same thing is incredibly exciting for me as a parent. I intend for each of my kids to do this over and over again, because this is financial freedom, and it's what generational wealth looks like as it happens. This is how you do it. And you can do it, actually. You can do it, and I will be happy to show you how.